Hey everybody, it's me. You may not recognize me because I'm wearing my professorial glasses today, so that could throw you, but it really is me. Welcome back to our next exclusive Patreon video. I think this is the fourth one. I probably should start keeping track, but I'm not sure if that's super important. I'm doing these videos to just like make sure that this platform, Patreon, gets you more access to what I do, how I do it, and a bit more of an intimate sort of exchange between us so that I can impart more information in a more detailed way and hopefully get even more guitar goodness into your brains and fingers and hands and into your eyes. So before we get started, I just have to say, from the bottom of my heart, and there's no way I could adequately really express this, but thank you so much for your support here on this channel. Suffice to say that without this channel and your support, none of this would be able to happen for me. I'd have to go get a real job like Pinocchio and become a real boy, and I don't want to do that. I want to do this, and I want to do it for you. And so having your support here on this channel really is the fuel for everything. And you know, the 16,000 currently on YouTube really owe you a debt of gratitude. So maybe I should point that out to everybody. Anyway. Thank you so much. And it's my profound hope that these types of videos give you a little bit more insight into what I have to offer. Okay, so all that aside, let's get started. So I put up a poll with a few ideas of videos that I thought were good topics for where the group is right now. And everyone voted, and it looks like overwhelmingly it went for practical applications for arpeggios, which I think is a great concept. And so we're going to dive right into it. And these, by the way, these videos are going to be a little less polished, a little less production value because I just want them to remain intimate. Okay, here we go. So ultimately, arpeggios are just chords played one note at a time. And so anytime you have a chord, you can use an arpeggio. So interestingly enough, I feel like there's a psychological barrier to arpeggios feeling like, well, they're this other thing that I have to figure out how to play. When you've got examples like this. House of the Rising Sun, or this. Stairway to Heaven, right? They're sort of sitting right in front of us, right? They're using arpeggios all the time. Any finger picking song that you know is really arpeggios, right? But so they're hiding in plain view, really. Now, the next sort of aspect of arpeggios beyond just saying anytime you have a chord you can use an arpeggio is using them in lead playing. So, you know, integrating them into a solo or an improvisation, and how do you do that? So I'm going to spend most of the time in this video on that idea, and we're going to zoom in here in a second, and I'll give you some exercises. So, but ultimately what you really want to do is two things. Get some arpeggio shapes down and just drill the crap out of them. And I'm talking about like taking A shapes around the circle of fifths, or even chromatically. Or around the circle of fifths, whatever it is. Just to drill basic shapes. And you can play any chord. Root 3, 5, root 3, 5, root 3. Right? Just take the time to like tear a chord apart and make it your own and arpeggiate it, because that takes you off of the paper, right? That gets you in charge of what you're doing. So go to the chords you already know, figure out the arpeggios, and then drill those puppies around the circle of fifths. And what that does is it gives you the capability to phrase in thirds. So you're playing in thirds, because scales, you're phrasing in seconds, and you're phrasing sequentially. Here's a note, here's the very next note in the scale, and then I go to the next note in the scale, and the note after that, blah, 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 blah. Arpeggios, and really drilling them, gets you this other capability where you're actually moving through chords in thirds. And that's the stumbling block. Once you get that down, it's all over, right? I mean, you've got the technique. Okay, so again, drilling. The next thing you want to do is we're going to zoom in here and I'm going to show you how to apply them. And this is really the same thing I've said in these voice leading videos before, but it's really just playing the chords, right? And I'm going to do this really simply. I'm going to drill down and get into triads and sort of zoom in and get real tight and detailed on it. So let's do that. Here we go. Okay. Practical applications for arpeggios. We just learned that they're sort of already out there in the wild, right? They're in House of the Rising Sun, Stairway to Heaven. Like anytime you have a chord in a rhythm, sort of application, you can use an arpeggio. But now let's talk about these sort of like bringing arpeggios into your lead playing and your soloing and your improvisation. So really what you want to do here is a number of things. Obviously drilling them is one thing, but also shortening the focus and getting these things down into triads so you can really see what you're doing and you don't have to bring the big bulky shapes with you. I'm going to borrow chord progression from Ari. Ari, thank you for this. We were working on a lesson and he provided this chord progression and I just thought it was really good because it's got one chord that's not in the key. It's C to E, A minor, and F. Now in this key, in the key of C, that E major is tricky because in the key you really are looking for an E minor. So I just want to play the C major pentatonic scale over this for a moment, show you how that works. You can always look at this as well as the A minor pentatonic because the C and A minor have that relative relationship. But I got to be careful around that E chord because it's not in the same key. So here's the pentatonic scale. Right? You can move around. That E chord is going to be tricky for the pentatonic scale. But now I'm just going to play arpeggios in the same spot, just using triads on the G, D, and B string. And I'm just going to arpeggiate these changes and just show you what that sounds like. Here's my C chord, A minor, F, E, A minor, now I'm going to mix them up a little bit. Now I'm going to just play arpeggios through this chord progression. I'm just going to grab this C chord here. Here, let me just show you what I'm going to do. C to E to A minor to F. These are all arpeggios on the D, G, and B string. C, E, A minor, and F. These will all be on the tabs that accompanies this video. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm just going to play the progression. So already there's some natural moments to arpeggiate and connect these chords together with very, very small intervals. Here's the C. Right? Those two chords connect really well. And listen to the A minor and the F. Here it comes. Right? I'm connecting those two chords together using a note that's close by. There's the C and the E. Here's the A minor. There's that note that's in the F chord, but this note is not in the pentatonic scale. Same with that C to E chord. Check this out. These two notes are definitely not in that pentatonic scale. So that's something you really want to watch out for in this chord progression, right? This is why arpeggios are so handy, because if the scale is going to sort of like, abandon you at some point, you can just toss in an arpeggio. Even if you say something to yourself like, well, I know this E chord isn't in the key. I don't really want to manage the cognitive load of wondering which notes to not play. So I'm going to play the scale and then I'm going to play an arpeggio over that chord. So let me show you how that works. And now here's where we're getting into real practical application. I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to play the scale over the C. I'm going to play an arpeggio over the E chord. I'm going to play the scale over the A minor and play an arpeggio for the F. I'm going to let the chord progression go by so I can get started here. Again, scale for the C, arpeggio, right? Scale over the C, arpeggio over the E, scale over the A minor, right to the arpeggio over the F, right? So I'm mixing them together. Okay, the tabs for that are also included here. Let me just give you a couple more examples of arpeggios that I use, and I'm going to be sort of blending them with scale. So I'm going to ascend an arpeggio and descend a scale. Here's one for A minor. Pretty easy. Up the arpeggio, down the scale. And I'm just using pentatonic. I'm going to use that same arpeggio, and now I'm going to descend Dorian. Same arpeggio descending Aeolian. And the same arpeggio descending harmonic minor. Right? So up the arpeggio, down the scale. Here's another one that I use all the time in a major key. So now I'm switching to A major. Using a little bit of a pedal tone here. This is an A major triad. A major, right? Just straight up the arpeggio. Pedal tone down. Up to that third, right? Because here's the root, here's the third. Great little chunks of arpeggios to use and to sort of drill. I would take those ideas and drill them around the circle of fifths and use a metronome. Like really, really work these. Because again, if your arpeggio capability is here and your pentatonic capability is here, when you go out into the wild, what are the results going to be? Your capability that you rely on for pentatonics is this big, arpeggios is this big. You've got to work it. You've got to go to the woodshed and really work that. Okay, so, and then a couple more things, just one more big shape that I use all the time, which is an A7 chord. That's a straight old big honkin' arpeggio. Now, I use that in a blues situation quite a bit. I might ascend that. Descend a scale there. That's the idea. You want to mix them up. Use fragments. You don't necessarily have to like swing up and down the arpeggios. Yngwie Malmsteen does that. It sounds pretty impressive, but after a minute, you want to go get a beer and do something else because it's a bit repetitious. Okay, hope this helps. Let's zoom back out and we'll wrap it up. Okay, practical uses for arpeggios. Really what I'm saying here in this video is you've got to practice them. You've got to like take your favorite chords, bust them out into pieces and play them one note at a time and take those shapes around the circle of fifths. You don't have to do a lot of it, but just think of the amount of time you've played the pentatonic scale, right? Let's say that's this much. And the amount of time you've played arpeggios, which is this much. You should expect your soloing then to contain this much scale playing and this much arpeggio playing. So to the degree that you want to up that arpeggio capability, you've just got to drill it and play them. So find the chords you already know. Hunt down those arpeggios. Be the guitarcheologist and find the root 3/5 and play it like through a couple of octaves. Take that shape around the circle of fifths. Okay, I'm getting worked up and now I'm repeating myself. And then what you want to do is that exercise where you climb up an arpeggio and climb down the scale, or climb up the scale and climb down the arpeggio, and just drill that over familiar chord progressions and you'll get it. It'll integrate. I promise you that's how it works. So not a big secret here, really practical ideas, a couple of drills that I showed you, a couple of ideas, and then realize that you might already have some arpeggios you're playing. You know, if you learn Stairway to Heaven or whatever, you've already got some arpeggio capability. Now is the time to really put it into the surface, bring it up to the surface, and go into the woodshed. Get into the woodshed and drill them and really put them on the neck and they'll sneak in there, I promise. Okay, thank you so much for your support here, for being with me, and for all of us working together. I really think this is going somewhere and it feels really good to me. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. Have fun with this. Let's talk about it in the description and in the comments. Let's throw around ideas, ask questions, and help each other out with this. Okay, thanks again. I hope this helps, and I'll see you next time.